My name is Luna Carter. I'm 23 years old, and for 23 years, I lived as a servant in my own home. Every morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. to scrub floors, cook breakfast, and wash laundry, while my brother, Ethan Carter, slept until noon in his oversized bed, sunlight pouring through his window like he belonged to a different world. My parents told me something when I was very young, something I believed for most of my life. Some children are born to be taken care of, and some are born to take care of others. Then my mother would look at me and say, "You're the second kind." I never questioned it. Not once. Until the day everything cracked. It happened at Ethan's wedding, during a family photo. The bride's father, a man I had never seen before, looked at my face and froze. His hands started trembling. His eyes widened like he had just seen a ghost. Then he pulled me aside and asked me one question that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. "Do you know who your real mother is before we go any further? Take a moment to subscribe only if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. And I'd really love to know, where are you listening from right now? What's the temperature there?" This is a fictional story, inspired by real-life situations, and brought to life with the help of artificial intelligence to make it more vivid and emotionally engaging. Now, let me take you back to the morning of Ethan's wedding. The day I believed would be the worst day of my life. We lived in a large colonial house in Westchester County, New York, the kind of neighborhood where every driveway held a luxury car, and every lawn looked like it belonged in a magazine. Our neighbors were surgeons, corporate lawyers, investment bankers. From the outside, the Carter family looked perfect. From the inside, it was a different story. My bedroom wasn't really a bedroom. It was the basement. Cold concrete floors, no windows, a thin mattress that smelled like damp air and time. The furnace sat just a few feet from my head, humming all night long, in the winter. It was the only thing keeping me from freezing, in the summer. It turned the room into something unbearable. Every morning at exactly 5 a.m., my alarm would ring. By 5:15, I was already upstairs, cleaning the marble countertops, preheating the stove, taking eggs and bacon out of a stainless steel refrigerator that cost more than anything I had ever owned. The kitchen island was made of imported white marble. My mother used to brag about it to her friends during book club. I knew every detail of that stone because I polished it every single day. Around 7 o'clock my father, Richard Carter, would come downstairs. Always the same routine. A newspaper tucked under his arm, a luxury watch glinting on his wrist. He would sit in his leather chair at the breakfast table and never once look at me. "Is breakfast ready?" he would ask, eyes still scanning the headlines. "Yes, sir." A pause. "The coffee is too weak today. Fix it tomorrow." That was it. That was the full extent of our conversations. 23 years, reduced to commands and corrections. I would place his plate on the table, fine china with silver edges, and quietly step back into the kitchen. I was never allowed to sit with them, never part of the meal. My place was by the sink, eating whatever leftovers remained after they finished. But the hardest part wasn't the cold basement or the endless chores. It was something else. It was the way they spoke about me. Ethan's room was upstairs, corner of the house, huge windows overlooking the garden. He had everything. A massive TV, the newest gaming console, a walk-in closet bigger than my entire living space. And me, I wasn't his sister. Not really. At least, that's what I thought. Ethan had everything I didn't. A massive flat-screen TV mounted on his wall, the newest gaming console, and a walk-in closet bigger than my entire basement. His room alone felt like a different world. He went to St. Augustine Prep, a private school that cost more than I could imagine earning in years. He played lacrosse, talked about college, and made plans with friends like his future was already waiting for him. I stayed home whenever neighbors asked about me. Elaine Carter would smile and say, "Luna is homeschooled. It's better for her." That was the story they told. The truth was much simpler. No one ever taught me anything. I learned to read from old magazines Elaine threw away. I sat on the basement floor, sounding out words, repeating them quietly until they made sense. I learned math by counting coins at the grocery store, memorizing prices, teaching myself because no one else would. When Ethan turned 18, Richard Carter handed him the keys to a brand new car. It gleamed in the driveway as Ethan laughed, hugging him, already talking about where he would go first. I watched from the kitchen. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a single form of identification. Once, when I was 12, I asked Elaine why I couldn't go to school. She answered immediately, "Your documents were lost in a fire. Replacing them is too complicated. You're better off here." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my mother, at least. That's what I told myself. Ethan had a credit card connected to Richard's account. No limit. He bought things without thinking. Shoes, clothes, dinners with friends. Each purchase cost more than everything I owned combined. I had 3 dresses. All of them were Elaine's old ones, altered to fit me. At dinner, they sat together. Ethan talked about his day, his friends, his plans. Richard listened, nodding. Elaine smiled and refilled his glass. I stood in the doorway, waiting, watching, ready to step forward when they finished, to clear the plates without being asked. One night, when I was 14, I made a mistake. I asked, "Why can't I sit with you?" Elaine looked at me and laughed. "Oh, Luna, the table only seats 3. It didn't. I had counted. There were 6 chairs. That night, I realized something I had never said out loud. I wasn't part of this family. I never had been. Richard called them the family rules. He wrote them on a small card when I was 5 and taped it to the inside of my basement door. Rule 1, you do not sit at the family table. Rule 2, you do not call us Mom or Dad. You say Mr. Carter and Mrs. Carter. Rule 3, you do not leave the house without permission. Rule 4, you do not speak to strangers. The consequences weren't written. They didn't need to be. They were hidden in the kitchen pantry. A thin wooden cane placed behind cereal boxes. Richard only used it twice. The first time, I was 7. I called Elaine Mom in front of her friend. The marks on my hands stayed for weeks. The second time, I was 16. I had saved coins for months. $17.32. I walked 3 miles to a bus station. I thought someone might help me. The police brought me back within 2 hours. "She has no ID," one officer said. "Nothing at all." "Is she yours?" Richard smiled. "Yes. She's our daughter. Just troubled. Thank you for bringing her home." They believed him. They left. He locked the door. I spent 3 days in the basement without food. When he came back, he leaned close and said quietly, "Without papers, you don't exist. And if you don't exist, no one will help you." I understood. After that, I never tried to leave again. For years, I stayed exactly where they wanted me, invisible. I had asked about it once, years ago, why I looked different, why my eyes didn't match theirs, why nothing about me seemed to belong in that house. Elaine slapped me before I could finish the question and told me to stop asking things that didn't concern me. After that, I learned to stay quiet. By the time Ethan turned 26, he had become everything my parents wanted: confident, polished, successful. He worked at one of the top real estate firms in New York, a job he hadn't earned on his own. It had been arranged for him. Her name was Charlotte Sinclair. Blonde, elegant, always perfectly composed, the daughter of Edward Sinclair, the CEO of Sinclair Holdings, a man whose wealth seemed to open doors without effort. Ethan proposed to her 3 months before the wedding at a luxury restaurant in Manhattan. A 2-carat diamond ring, charged to Richard's account without hesitation. My parents were ecstatic. This wasn't just a marriage, it was an opportunity. I overheard Richard speaking to Elaine the night of the engagement, their voices low but urgent. "This is it," he said. "This is how we move up. The Sinclairs are old money. Connections like this change everything." Elaine agreed immediately. I could hear the excitement in her voice. Sharp and eager. Edward Sinclair would change everything for them. They just didn't know how. Charlotte would play a role in what came next, but not in the way they expected. It wouldn't be her. It would be her father. I was 15 when I finally asked the question I had been holding inside for years. Elaine was in the living room, flipping through a catalog, marking pages with small notes. I had just finished mopping the floors. My hands stung from the chemicals. "Mrs. Carter," I said quietly. She didn't look up. "What? Why am I different from Ethan?" The catalog lowered slowly. Her eyes met mine, cold and flat. "Different how? Why does he go to school? Why does he sit at the table? Why do I have to stay down there?" I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. Because she cut in, her voice sharp. "Some children are born to be loved, and some are born to be useful." She looked at me like I was something already decided. "You're the second kind. Luna, that's your role. That's your purpose." Then she returned to her catalog. The conversation was over. That night, I went back to the basement and stood in front of the small cracked mirror above the sink. The only mirror I was allowed to have. I stared at my reflection. My eyes were green. Theirs were not. My face didn't resemble theirs in any way, but I stopped questioning it. Elaine was right. That's what I told myself. Some people are born to serve. I was one of them. For years. I believed that. I woke up at 5. I cleaned. I cooked. I stayed invisible. I told myself this was my life. This was what I deserved. Then Ethan's wedding came, and everything began to change. The announcement came 6 months before the ceremony. Ethan Carter and Charlotte Sinclair would be married at the Grand Regency Hotel in Manhattan. 200 guests, live orchestra, a 5-tier cake flown in from a famous bakery. The total cost was enormous. Edward Sinclair covered all of it. Richard walked around the house for weeks like he had already won something. "This is the biggest moment of our lives," he kept saying. "We need to make the right impression." Elaine threw herself into planning. She coordinated every detail with Charlotte's mother. Flowers, menus, seating arrangements. She even bought a new designer dress for the occasion, something she kept carefully covered until the day arrived. I thought I would be part of it. I had spent months helping prepare, addressing invitations, organizing responses, running errands, doing everything they asked. I even practiced walking in heels at night when no one was watching, imagining myself standing beside the bride. But 3 weeks before the wedding, Elaine called me into the kitchen. "We need to talk about your role," she said. For a moment, I felt something unfamiliar. Hope. "Will I be walking with the bridesmaids?" I asked. She laughed. Not kindly. "No. Luna, You'll be helping with service, passing drinks, making sure the guests are taken care of. The words hit harder than I expected. You want me to work at the wedding? It's not work, she replied smoothly. It's helping. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You know how you are, Elaine said softly. Clumsy, awkward. If you stood up there in front of the Sinclairs, they'd start asking questions. Is that what you want to embarrass Ethan on his wedding day? I shook my head. The feeling was familiar. That quiet numbness settling in, pushing everything else away. Later that night, the wedding invitations arrived. Thick paper, embossed gold lettering, everything precise and expensive. I went through every single one. My name wasn't there. Not on the family list. Not anywhere. The rehearsal dinner was held at an exclusive country club just outside the city. White tablecloths, polished glassware, champagne that probably cost more than I had seen in years. The entire terrace overlooked a perfectly maintained golf course. I wore a simple black dress with a white apron. Elaine had chosen it herself. You look presentable, she said. Adjusting my collar. Smile. Don't speak unless someone speaks to you, and stay out of the way. I carried a silver tray through the crowd, offering champagne to guests who barely noticed me. Wealthy relatives, business partners, people whose names I had seen in magazines scattered around the house. I moved quietly between them. Invisible. That was when Charlotte noticed me. She approached near the bar, her hair styled perfectly, her engagement ring catching the light. You're Ethan's sister, right, Luna? I almost dropped the tray. Yes. Ma'am? Then why aren't you sitting with the family? Before I could answer, Elaine appeared beside me, her voice smooth, practiced. Luna prefers helping. She's always been shy, more comfortable in the background. Her hand rested lightly on my arm, a gesture that looked affectionate from a distance. Charlotte frowned slightly, like something didn't feel right, but she didn't press further. She nodded and walked back to Ethan. I continued moving through the crowd. That's when I noticed him. Edward Sinclair. He stood near the railing, a glass in his hand. Watching me, not casually, not briefly, watching. His expression had changed, his face pale, his jaw tight. He walked toward me slowly. Excuse me, he said. What's your name, Luna? Sir. Luna, he repeated, like he was testing the sound. Then his eyes searched my face. Do you know who your birth mother is? The question caught me off guard. I'm sorry. He stared at me for a long moment. Something unreadable in his expression. Then he turned away abruptly, already pulling out his phone as he walked off. Elaine had been watching. Her smile didn't change, but her grip on the glass tightened. That night, I sat alone in the basement. Above me, laughter echoed through the house. Voices, music, the sound of glasses clinking. Everyone celebrating. Down here, it was quiet. Just the hum of the furnace and the slow drip of a pipe. I held the uniform I would wear the next day, smoothing out the wrinkles with my hands. Beside it was the white apron, perfectly clean. On my lap was a photograph, the only one I had. I was 5 years old in that picture. Standing at the edge of the frame, Richard, Elaine, and a young Ethan stood together in front of a Christmas tree. They were close. I wasn't. In 23 years, there wasn't a single photo where I stood beside them. Not one. The question returned, louder than ever. Why didn't I look like them? Why was I always kept apart? Why did I feel like a stranger in my own home? I thought about Edward Sinclair, the way his face had changed, the way he looked at me, like he recognized something, like he had been searching. But that didn't make sense. No one had ever looked for me. No one had ever wanted me. Tomorrow, I would serve drinks at my brother's wedding while they pretended I didn't exist. And after that, life would go on exactly the same. At least. That's what I believed. I woke up at 4 a.m. The house was completely silent. I moved quietly through the house, careful not to make a sound, and started preparing breakfast. Eggs Benedict, fresh orange juice, everything Richard expected on a day like this. By 6, the table was set with the finest china. Then I went to the guest room. Charlotte's wedding dress hung inside a garment bag, untouched, a designer piece. Delicate, detailed, far beyond anything I had ever seen up close. Elaine had insisted on keeping it in our house, claiming it would be safer here. I knew the truth. She wanted to show it off. I carefully lifted the fabric and began steaming it. My hands unsteady. One mistake would cost more than I could ever repay. Footsteps echoed behind me. Elaine stood in the doorway, wrapped in silk, watching. "Don't touch the beading," she said sharply. "It's worth more than you." "Yes." "Mrs. Carter." She stepped closer, arms crossed. "When we arrive, you use the service entrance. No one sees you come in." "Yes, Mrs. Carter. And don't embarrass us." Her voice dropped lower. "This is the most important day of Ethan's life. If you ruin it, you'll regret it." Richard's voice called from downstairs, demanding his coffee. Elaine smirked and walked away. I stayed there for a moment, staring at the dress, at the life I would never have. Something shifted inside me, quiet, but real. This wouldn't last forever. I didn't know how it would end, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. The ballroom looked unreal. Crystal chandeliers hung high above, white roses covering every surface. Rows of gold chairs faced the altar, where Ethan would soon stand beside Charlotte, promising a life I had never been allowed to imagine. I entered through the back. A manager handed me a tray. "Champagne service. Keep moving. Don't talk." I nodded. Guests began to arrive. Expensive dresses, tailored suits, diamonds catching the light. I moved between them, offering glasses, keeping my eyes down. "Are you at the hotel?" a woman asked. "Yes, ma'am." The lie came easily. Richard passed by without looking at me. Elaine stopped just long enough to whisper, "Stand up straight." Then Ethan walked in with his friends, laughing. He saw me and waved. "Luna, make sure my table gets extra seafood." "Okay. Of course." One of his friends glanced at me. "Who's that?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Our housekeeper." The word landed harder than I expected. I said nothing. I kept moving. Then I felt it. Someone watching. I looked up, across the room. Edward Sinclair stood still, his glass untouched. His eyes were fixed on me, not casually, not briefly, like he was trying to understand something. The ceremony began. Music filled the room as Charlotte walked down the aisle, her dress flowing behind her. Ethan stood waiting, smiling, confident. Richard and Elaine sat in the front row, emotional, proud. I stood at the back, holding a tray, watching from a distance. The vows were spoken, rings exchanged. Applause filled the room, and I remained exactly where I had always been, outside of it all. For a moment, I imagined something different. A seat in the front row, a place beside them, a life where I wasn't hidden. Then I let the thought go. If you think my family was right to treat me like someone who only exists to serve, then comment right. But if you don't support that kind of treatment, comment toxic family. Right now, I feel invisible, Like I've spent my whole life standing in a place where I was never meant to belong. It hurts more than I can explain. But maybe your voice can remind me I'm not alone. Speak up for me, because sometimes a single voice is enough to give someone the strength to finally break free. For a moment, I let myself imagine something impossible. A soft lavender dress instead of a black uniform. A bouquet of roses in my hands instead of a silver tray. Ethan turning to Charlotte and saying, "This is my sister, Luna," instead of pretending I didn't exist. But that life wasn't mine. Maybe it never had been. The music swelled as the ceremony ended. Guests stood, applauding as Ethan and Charlotte walked down the aisle together. Smiling. Perfect. Surrounded by falling rose petals. As they passed me, Elaine's eyes met mine. There was no warmth in them, no pride, just a silent warning. Remember your place. I lowered my gaze immediately, but I still felt it. That presence again. I looked up slightly and found him. Edward Sinclair stood near the back. Completely still. He hadn't clapped. He hadn't smiled. His eyes were locked on me, like he was trying to understand something no one else could see. I didn't know why, but something unfamiliar stirred inside my chest. Something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. And I didn't know what to do with it. If you've stayed with me this far, maybe you understand why I'm telling this story. Maybe you know what it feels like to stand inside your own family and still feel like an outsider. To serve people who won't even acknowledge you exist. Have you ever lived like that? If you have, tell me. I need to know I wasn't the only one. The reception began with music and champagne. A live band filled the room while guests laughed, talked, celebrated. I worked the Sinclair family table, refilling glasses, clearing plates, moving quietly between conversations I wasn't part of. Charlotte's mother smiled politely at me. The rest of her family barely noticed I was there. Edward sat at the head of the table. He hardly touched his food. Every time I stepped closer, I felt his gaze again. Not cold, not uncomfortable, just searching. When I reached for his plate, his hand moved suddenly and caught my wrist. Not harshly, but firmly enough to stop me. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I need to ask you something." "Yes, sir. Your name is Luna." "Yes." "Luna Carter." "Yes, sir." He let go, but his hand trembled slightly. "Do you know who your mother is? Your real mother?" The question again. "I live with Mr. and Mrs. Carter," I answered carefully. "They've raised me since I was a child." His expression changed. Something cracked behind his eyes. Pain. Maybe. Or recognition. He stood abruptly. "Excuse me." I watched him walk toward the terrace, already on his phone, speaking urgently to someone I couldn't hear. Charlotte noticed. "Is my dad okay?" I didn't know what to say. At the main table, Elaine had seen everything. Her smile froze mid-expression as she leaned toward Richard, whispering something under her breath. Richard turned slowly. His eyes found me, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in them. The photographer called everyone forward. "Family photos. Please. Both sides." The Sinclairs gathered first, composed and elegant. Then my family stepped forward. Richard adjusted his jacket. Elaine smoothed her dress. Ethan pulled Charlotte closer. I stayed where I was, behind them, holding a tray. The photographer looked at me, confused. "What about her? Is she family?" Silence. Richard forced a tight smile. Elaine looked away. Ethan said nothing. Then Edward's voice cut through the moment. "Yes. She is." Everyone turned. "Luna," he said calmly. "Come stand next to me." I froze. Sir, come here. I set the tray down. My legs felt unsteady as I walked forward. Richard's face darkened, his jaw tightening, but he said nothing. He couldn't. Not to Edward Sinclair. Not today. I stepped into a place I had never been allowed to stand before. Edward placed his hand gently on my shoulder. His touch was steady, grounding. Stand here, he said quietly. This is where you belong. The photographer lifted his camera. Everyone ready? Smile. The flash went off. Edward didn't move away. As the photographer showed him the image, he leaned in, zooming closer. Not at the group. At me. I watched his expression change. His eyes filled. Those eyes. He whispered. That face. It can't be. He stepped back, already pulling out his phone. I caught fragments of his voice. I'm certain. Get the file. The 2003 case. Prepare a DNA kit tonight. My heart stopped before I could process it. A hand grabbed my arm. Richard. He dragged me away. Through a side corridor. Past the kitchen. Into a narrow space stacked with crates. The music faded behind us. What did you tell him? He demanded. His face inches from mine. Nothing. I swear. Don't lie. His grip tightened. Why is he asking about your mother? I don't know. He just asked. I said I live with you. He shoved me back against the wall. The crates rattled. Listen carefully. He hissed. If you say anything to anyone, I will throw you out. No money, no clothes. You'll be on the street within days. Do you understand? I nodded. Footsteps approached. Elaine? She looked between us, her expression sharpening. What's going on? He's asking questions about her. Richard said. Elaine's eyes settled on me. Cold. After this. You stay in clean. She said. You speak to no one. And whatever Mr. Sinclair asks you, you say nothing. Her voice lowered. We are your family. Without us, you would be nothing. Then she smiled. The same perfect smile she showed everyone else. Now go back. And don't embarrass us again. They left me there. Alone. Shaking. Richard's words echoed in my mind. Without papers. You don't exist. But Edward Sinclair looked at me like I did exist. Like I mattered. I didn't understand it. I went back to the ballroom. The music had started again. Couples danced. Laughter filled the air. Ethan and Charlotte stood at the center, smiling like nothing could touch them. Richard and Elaine sat at their table, laughing with guests, like everything was normal. I picked up my tray again, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Maybe Richard was right. Without proof, without identity, I was no one. If I left, I would disappear. No one would look for me. No one would notice. I drifted toward the edge of the room, toward the exit. Maybe I could just leave, walk out and keep going until I couldn't anymore. What difference would it make, Luna? I turned. Edward stood behind me. His expression was different now. Softer, heavy with something I couldn't name. May I speak with you? He asked quietly. Just for a moment. I hesitated. Across the room. Elaine was watching. I don't think I should. Please, he said. His voice cracked slightly. I've been searching for someone for a very long time. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. Old. Worn. A woman holding a baby. Dark hair. Green eyes. Eyes just like mine. Do you recognize her? He asked. My throat tightened. I don't know. But something inside me shifted. Something familiar. Like a memory I couldn't reach. Edward nodded slowly. Come with me. He led me toward the terrace, away from the noise, into the quiet night air. The night air was cool against my skin. Inside. The reception carried on. Laughter. Music, the soft clinking of glasses. Out here, everything felt distant, quiet, except for the sound of my own heartbeat. Edward held the photograph closer to me, under the soft light. I could see it clearly now. A young woman, maybe in her 20s, holding a baby wrapped in a pink blanket. The woman's smile was tired but warm. The baby was small, peaceful. "This is my sister, Eleanor," Edward said, "and the baby is her daughter, Luna Ashford Sinclair." I stared at him. "I don't understand. 23 years ago, that baby was taken from a hospital in California," he continued, his voice unsteady. "Kidnapped from the nursery in the middle of the night." He paused, swallowing hard. "My sister spent years searching. She hired investigators, worked with the FBI. She never stopped believing her daughter was alive." His voice broke. "She died when the child would have been 5. The doctors said it was her heart, but it was grief. She couldn't keep going." "I'm sorry," I whispered, "but I don't see what this has to do with me." Edward looked directly at me. The baby's name was Luna. She had green eyes. Rare in our family, the same eyes my sister had. He lifted his hand slightly toward my face. "Your eyes, your features, they're the same." I stepped back. "Mr. Sinclair, I think you're mistaken. I've been searching for 23 years, he said, tears forming in his eyes. "And when I saw you, I knew." He reached into his pocket and took out a small plastic container. "Please, let me take a DNA sample. If I'm wrong, I'll disappear from your life. But if I'm right..." He hesitated. "Then the people inside are not your family. They're the ones who took you." The words felt unreal. Taken. For years, I had been told I was nothing, that I should be grateful, that I had a place because they allowed it. And now this man was telling me everything I believed could be a lie. "I can't," I said, stepping back. "I can't do this. Please," he said softly. "I have a lab ready. Results in 72 hours. If it matches, you're my niece." He took a breath. "And there's something else. My sister created a trust in her daughter's name. If she was ever found..." I froze. "What trust?" "It's been growing for 23 years. How much he met my eyes. $12 million. The world seemed to tilt. "This isn't about money," he said quickly. "It's about the truth. About justice. About finally giving my sister peace." Through the glass doors, I could see Elaine moving through the crowd, searching, looking for me, looking for what she believed she owned. I thought about the basement, the rules, the years of silence. Then I thought about a woman who never stopped searching for her child. I looked back at Edward. "What do I need to do?" He opened the kit. Just a quick sample. The next 3 days felt endless. I went back to my routine, waking at 5, cleaning, cooking, saying nothing. But everything had changed. Every time Richard spoke, I looked at him differently. Every time Elaine criticized me, I heard Edward's words in my mind. "The people who took you. Why are you distracted?" Elaine snapped one morning. The coffee had gone cold. "Nothing. Mrs. Carter, I'm just tired." "You're always tired," she said, pouring it out. "Make it again, and pay attention." I made another pot, but my thoughts were somewhere else. I washed the dishes. I folded the laundry. I followed every routine exactly as I had for years. But this time, something was different. In my pocket, I carried the small piece of paper Edward Sinclair had given me. His number, written in blue ink. I checked it constantly, like it might disappear if I didn't. Ethan and Charlotte had already left for their honeymoon. The house was quieter without him. But the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt heavier. On the third night, I lay awake in the basement, staring at the ceiling, counting every passing minute. Then my phone vibrated. The old device lit up in the dark. A message from an unknown number. The results are in. Can you meet tomorrow 10 a.m.? Main Street Cafe. ES. My heart stopped. Then it started again. Faster than ever. I typed back. I'll be there. The next morning, I told Elaine I needed to buy cleaning supplies. She didn't even look up. Be back before noon. I have guests coming. Yes. Mrs. Carter. I walked out the door and kept walking towards something I had never allowed myself to believe in. The cafe was small and quiet, brick walls, simple furniture, the smell of coffee in the air. Edward was already there. He sat in the corner, a sealed envelope on the table in front of him. His face looked tired, like he hadn't slept. Luna, he said, standing as I approached. Thank you for coming. What do the results say? He didn't answer right away. He slid the envelope toward me. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were pages filled with numbers and terms I didn't understand, but one section was highlighted. Probability 99.97%. Conclusion: the tested individual, Luna Carter, is the biological daughter of Eleanor Ashford Sinclair. I read it again, and again. The words didn't change. You're my niece, Edward said quietly. You're Eleanor's daughter, Luna Ashford Sinclair. The room felt like it shifted around me. This is real. It's real, he said. I've already contacted the authorities. The case from 2003 is being reopened. His hand covered mine. The people who raised you will be investigated. If they took you illegally, they will face charges. Charges, I whispered. Human trafficking, fraud, child endangerment. They could face decades in prison. I leaned back, still holding the report. 23 years. 23 years of being told I was nothing, and none of it was true. I wasn't unwanted. I wasn't forgotten. I had a family, a real one, a mother who had searched for me until she couldn't anymore. For the first time. Everything I believed about myself shattered. But now I had a choice. I could walk away. Disappear. Start over somewhere new and leave it all behind. Or I could face the truth. And make them answer for what they had done. What would you do? Because this was the moment everything changed. A week later, everything was set. Edward invited the Carters to his estate. The reason was simple. Business. Richard couldn't hide his excitement. This is it, he said over dinner. We're finally stepping into their world. Elaine spent days preparing, choosing the perfect outfit, adjusting every detail. Ethan and Charlotte even cut their honeymoon short to attend. No one suspected anything. Of course, I was told to come as well. To help, Elaine said, as if it were obvious. I didn't argue. When we arrived, Richard let out a low whistle. The estate was massive. Gates, gardens, a long driveway leading to a house that looked more like a palace. This has to be worth at least $30 million, he said. More, Elaine replied, her voice filled with admiration. We were led inside. The main room was enormous. High ceilings, paintings, furniture that looked priceless. Edward greeted us warmly. He shook Richard's hand, kissed Elaine on the cheek, smiled like everything was perfectly normal. But I saw it. The calm before everything fell apart. Please, make yourselves comfortable, Edward said smoothly. Ethan and Charlotte should be here shortly. I stayed near the doorway, quiet, watching. Richard didn't notice anything unusual. Neither did Elaine. They were too focused on the room, the furniture, the wealth surrounding them. But I noticed the man in the gray suit standing just beyond the open doorway, the woman seated with a folder resting on her lap, their stillness, their attention. Edward caught my eye for a brief second, a small nod. Everything was in place. A house staff member brought in tea, placing delicate cups on the table. Elaine accepted hers with a practiced smile, crossing her legs as if she had always belonged in rooms like this. "This home is incredible," she said. "Absolutely beautiful." "Thank you," Edward replied, taking his seat. His tone remained calm, measured. "I wanted to discuss something before Ethan arrives." Richard's hand paused mid-motion. "Something about Luna?" he asked. "Yes." Edward gestured toward me. "She's been with your family for quite a long time, hasn't she? Since she was a baby?" Elaine answered quickly. "We adopted her, raised her as our own, gave her everything." "Adopted," Edward repeated, his voice even. He nodded slightly. "That's interesting. I had my attorneys look into that." Silence filled the room. "There are no adoption records," he continued. "Not under her name, not under yours." Richard set his cup down carefully. "Records get lost," he said. "You know how these systems work. I checked with the state as well." Edward said, "There's no birth certificate, no social security number issued at birth, no hospital records." Elaine's smile faltered. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Edward leaned forward slightly. "I'm suggesting that Luna has no legal identity, no documentation." Which raises a simple question. His eyes settled on them. "Where did she come from?" Richard stood abruptly. "I don't appreciate this," he snapped. "I don't know what you're trying to imply. It's not an implication." Edward said calmly. "Not yet." He opened a folder beside him and placed two documents on the table. The first was the DNA report. The second, older, marked with official stamps. "This," Edward said, pointing to the first page, "confirms that Luna is a 99.97% genetic match to my sister." My breath caught. She is Eleanor Ashford Sinclair's daughter. Richard's face drained of color. "And this," Edward continued, tapping the second document, "is a federal case file, March 2003. My niece was taken from a hospital when she was 6 months old." He looked directly at them. "She was never found." Elaine's cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "This is ridiculous," Richard said, his voice shaking. "We would never then explain it." Edward cut in, his tone sharper now. "Explain why she has no records, no proof of existence, no legal connection to you." "There was a fire," Elaine said quickly. "The documents were lost." "There was no fire," Edward replied. "I checked." He held their gaze. No hospital records, no missing files, no child ever registered under your name. The room went still. Then the door behind us opened. The man in the gray suit stepped forward, followed by the woman holding the folder. "Richard Carter, Elaine Carter." His voice was steady. "Official. I'm Special Agent Harris with the FBI. We have some questions about how you obtained your daughter." The words landed like a final verdict. Richard staggered back, his face drained of color. Elaine's composure shattered instantly. She began to cry, her hands trembling as she looked around the room, searching for something that could undo what was happening. I stood still, watching, for the first time in my life. I wasn't the one trapped. They were. Everything unfolded quickly after that. Agent Harris stepped forward and presented the warrant. His partner began reading their rights, her voice steady and practiced. "Richard Carter, Elaine Carter, You are under arrest for suspicion of human trafficking, document fraud, and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent. Richard tried to run. It lasted only a few seconds. He barely made it across the room before he was grabbed, forced against the wall, and restrained. The man who had controlled every part of my life for 23 years broke down instantly, his strength gone the moment it mattered. Elaine collapsed onto the sofa, crying uncontrollably. "Luna, please," she sobbed. "Tell them this is a mistake. We're your family. We raised you." I looked at her, really looked, at the woman who had told me I was nothing, who had taught me to disappear. "You raised me as a servant," I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. "You never treated me like family, not once. We gave you everything." She insisted. "You gave me a basement." I replied, "A mattress on concrete." I stepped closer. "You took my identity. You took my childhood. You took my mother from me." Her face crumpled. "We didn't know. We thought—" "You knew." Richard snapped suddenly, even as they restrained him. "Don't pretend you didn't." At that moment, the front door opened. Ethan and Charlotte walked in, still dressed from travel. Their expressions relaxed until they saw the scene in front of them. Handcuffs, agents, their parents being taken away. Charlotte's face went pale. "What is happening?" she demanded. No one answered her. Within a month, the charges were official. Richard and Elaine Carter were indicted on multiple counts: human trafficking, fraud, child endangerment. The investigation uncovered everything. I hadn't been adopted. I had been bought. In 2003, they paid $15,000 to an illegal network. A transaction recorded like any other, my name listed in a ledger between dates and numbers, as if I had been nothing more than a product. The network had been shut down years before, but the records remained. The truth had always been there. It just took someone to look for it. The trial lasted 4 months. I testified twice. Richard maintained his innocence, claiming he believed I was an orphan, that he had given me a better life. No one believed him. Elaine tried to shift the blame. She said she had been forced, that she had wanted to treat me better but couldn't. No one believed her either. When the verdict came, it was final. Richard received 18 years. Elaine received 12. Their assets were frozen. The house, the one that had defined my entire existence, was seized. Everything they built collapsed. Ethan's life collapsed with it. Edward Sinclair withdrew all support immediately. The wedding, the connections, the job Ethan had relied on, all of it disappeared overnight. Charlotte filed for divorce within weeks. "I can't do this," I overheard her say once. "Your parents trafficked a child. I won't be part of that." Ethan lost everything. The job, the house, the life he had always assumed would be his. For the first time, he was alone, and for the first time in my life, I was free. 6 months after the sentencing, my phone rang. His name appeared on the screen. Ethan Carter. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hello?" His voice was different, weaker, uncertain. "Luna, I need to talk to you." About what he let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "I'm in trouble. That's putting it lightly. I lost everything. The apartment, the car. Charlotte's lawyers are coming after me. I can't find work. No one will hire me." I said nothing. "I was hoping." He hesitated. "Maybe you could help me. Just a loan. Just until I figure things out." There it was. After everything. After years of silence. Now he needed me. "Ethan," I said slowly. "In all those years, did you ever help me silence?" Did you ever stand up for me? Did you ever ask why I lived in the basement? Why I wasn't allowed at the table I didn't know? He said quietly. You did. I replied. You just chose not to care. My voice remained steady. I made your life easier. That's all I was to you. He didn't respond. And now that I'm not there anymore, you don't know how to survive. Luna, please. No, the word came easily. I'm not going to help you. There was a long pause. Then I ended the call. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. And I didn't look back. I'm not going to help you. Ethan, I said, not because I hate you, but because you need to learn something. I paused. Actions have consequences, and so does silence. Then I hung up. My hand trembled, but my heart didn't. For the first time, I had chosen myself. 3 months after the trial, my new life became real. Edward's lawyers finalized everything: court approvals, federal verification, documents that proved who I truly was. Then the final statement arrived. Luna Ashford Sinclair Trust. Active. Value. Over $12 million. I read it again and again. But it wasn't the money that changed me. It was my name. Luna Ashford Sinclair. The name I was born with. The name that had been taken from me. Edward took me to the bank the day the funds were released. We sat in a quiet office while everything was explained: accounts, investments, security. For years, I had nothing. Now, I had everything I needed. He gave me a place to stay at his estate. A real room, soft sheets, sunlight through wide windows. That first night, I didn't sleep. I walked around touching everything, reminding myself it was real. Then came something I had never had before. Education. Tutors helped me catch up. Step by step. I learned things I should have known years ago. I wasn't behind. I was starting over. A year later, I received an acceptance letter. A full scholarship. A program for survivors like me. I held that letter in my hands and cried. Not because I was broken, but because I wasn't anymore. Later, I found something else. A letter from my mother, written before I was taken. She wrote about me. About how much she loved me. About how she believed I was meant for something more. I read it every day. It filled something inside me that had been empty for so long. Months later, I made one final decision. I went to see them. The prison was cold and silent. Steel doors, gray walls, nothing like the house I had once been trapped in. Richard looked smaller. Elaine looked older. They sat across from me. You came. Elaine whispered. I'm not here to fix anything. I said, I'm here to speak. Richard leaned forward. Then say it. I met his eyes. For 23 years. You made me believe I was nothing, that I existed to serve. I took a breath. But you were wrong. I wasn't born to serve. I was taken. And you knew it. Elaine broke down. We thought we were saving you. You were using me. I said. I stood up. I'm not here for your excuses. I'm here to say I'm done. I'm not carrying your past anymore. I looked at them one last time. I won't forget. But I won't let it define me. Then I walked away. And I never went back. Now, I'm writing this from my dorm room. It's small, simple, but it's mine. My name is on the door. My books are on the desk. My future is finally my own. Some mornings, I still wake up early. But now, I make coffee. I study. I learn. I'm becoming someone who can help others like me, people who were silenced, forgotten, treated like they didn't matter. On my nightstand, I keep 2 things: my birth certificate and my mother's letter. Every morning, I read it, and every day, I remind myself of the truth. I was never meant to be invisible. I was meant to be loved. I chose to walk away from the people who hurt me, to stop helping those who never saw my worth, and to finally choose myself. If you would do the same, protect your peace and build your own future, write perfect decision so I know I'm not alone. If you would choose differently, for example, seeking revenge at all costs, write revenge and tell me why. Your voice matters, because sometimes one brave choice can change an entire life. There was a time I believed I was born to be invisible, to serve and accept whatever life gave me. But the truth changed everything. I was never worthless. I was just never seen. This journey taught me that your value is not defined by how others treat you, but by the courage you have to stand up and reclaim your life. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was necessary to finally become who I was meant to be. If this story touched you, don't stay silent. Your voice can give strength to someone else who feels unseen. Take a moment to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Because together, we can build a community where everyone feels valued. I wish you strength, clarity, and the courage to choose yourself. See you in the next story.